When I checked the view count on Angel Reese's most recent podcast episodes, I was genuinely shocked. Some of them were barely breaking 70 views. 70. This is someone who, not long ago, was one of the most talked about figures in women's sports. One episode, featuring Jada Cheeves and Des Dior, clocked in at just 66 views. That's not a typo. The content had completely shifted. Gone was the sports talk her audience expected, replaced by an hour-long conversation about dating wealthy men. Her core basketball fans were left wondering if they had clicked on the wrong show. And here's the truth. The main reason Angel's podcast has fallen off a cliff is because of the guests she's chosen to highlight. People watched and asked, who are these people and why should we care? What started as a slight dip in viewership turned into a full-blown collapse when Angel responded to criticism by telling her fans to shut up. Not only was it tone-deaf, but it poured gasoline on an already burning fire. This isn't just about bad content, it's about broken trust. Fans, already disappointed by the shift in direction, began comparing Angel's off-season to Caitlin Clark's, who has spent her time improving, staying focused, and preparing to elevate the WNBA. The contrast couldn't be more glaring. While Angel invited celebrity influencers with no sports relevance, Caitlin stayed locked in, gaining respect and momentum heading into her rookie season. Past episodes of Unapologetically Angel featured meaningful guests: Lisa Leslie, Skylar Diggins-Smith, Dee Dee Richards, and Deja Kelly. Those conversations had heart, grit, and real insight, but this latest episode felt like a reality TV audition. There was no talk of basketball, no real insight, just influencers discussing luxury dating and social media drama. It was a bait and switch, plain and simple. The most painful part? The fans noticed, and they walked away. One comment summed it up. I feel like she's forgetting why we started supporting her. Another added, this isn't it. I came for basketball, not love hip-hop. Viewers didn't hold back. Some mocked the grammar and coherence of what was said on the show. Others were baffled by how far Angel had strayed from what made her special. A fearless, hard-working hooper who took pride in representing women's basketball. Even Shaquille O'Neal's powerful podcast network couldn't save the show from this collapse. At one point, Angel's episodes were regularly hitting solid viewership numbers. But now, one recent upload didn't even reach 50 views in a full week. That's a collapse. Not a slow fade, a total nosedive. This wasn't about haters or trolls. These were her supporters expressing heartbreak. People who believed in her. And instead of listening, Angel doubled down and posted the now infamous tweet, "This is my podcast. Shut the F up. Don't watch. Thank you." That single tweet may have been the final blow. She could have handled criticism with grace. She could have said, I'm trying something new, but I hear you. I'll bring back more sports talk. Instead, she told her fans to get lost. The result? A public relations meltdown. One fan wrote, "You threw out the baby. We're the shareholders of your content. If you can't handle the heat, get off the mic." Another added, "I feel like I'm losing brain cells listening to this." And the numbers back it up. Angel hasn't had an episode hit 5,000 views in weeks. Now, let's be real. This isn't just about a podcast flopping. This is about brand trust. Companies notice when your audience disappears. Teammates notice. Sponsors reevaluate. This is a warning for any athlete who's thinking about building a media platform. Because Angel had it all. The following. The platform. The professional production. But what she didn't have was connection. And that's the one thing you cannot fake. This didn't have to happen. One conversation with a PR team could have saved it. One acknowledgement of her fans' concerns would have gone a long way. But instead, she lit the bridge on fire and watched it burn. Fans didn't want glamorized dating rants or D-list celebrity guests. They wanted basketball. They wanted behind-the-scenes stories. They wanted the real Angel Reese, the fighter, the leader, the icon from LSU. Instead, they got influencers with nothing to say. One comment nailed it. Out of all the incredible women in the world, you decided to highlight rapper girlfriends? And now? Even longtime supporters are openly questioning if Angel still wants to play basketball, or if she's chasing red carpet moments instead of the hardwood. It's hard to watch, especially when you think about what could have been. Angel Reese could have been an ambassador for this new era of women's basketball. She could have used her platform to elevate other athletes, coaches, and changemakers. But instead, she used it to flex and alienate the very people who got her there. This wasn't just a bad episode. This was a case study in what not to do as a creator. What truly shocked and disappointed many fans wasn't just the change in Angel Reese's podcast content, it was the complete disregard for the loyal base that had supported her from day one. These weren't just casual fans. These were the same people who celebrated her LSU dominance, who reposted her highlights, who defended her online, and who genuinely believed she was the face of a new era in women's basketball. These were basketball people. They didn't tune in for clout-chasing conversations about luxury dating or Instagram gossip. They tuned in because they thought Angel Reese was one of them, and that's what made this shift so devastating. It wasn't just that she started interviewing influencers with little relevance to basketball. It was that she acted like her original audience didn't matter anymore. This wasn't evolution. This wasn't growth. This was abandonment. You could feel it in the way she selected her guests. Not fellow athletes, not pioneers of the game, not women building something real in the sports world. Instead, she brought in names that might trend for a week on social media, but had no staying power or depth when it came to the culture of basketball. The irony, Reese had every opportunity to create one of the most important platforms in women's sports media. A show that could have blended her on-court authenticity with real conversations that elevate the game and its players. Instead, what fans received was a bait and switch. They pressed play expecting post-game insight, training talk, and stories from the locker room. What they got was a lengthy discussion about dating men with money, delivered by people many of her core audience didn't even recognize. Fans weren't just confused, they were betrayed. It wasn't just about who was on the show, it was what that choice represented. It represented a shift from purpose to performance, from substance to spectacle, from the grind of the game to the glitz of fame. And when the backlash came, instead of listening, instead of reflecting, instead of even acknowledging that her core fanbase had a valid reason to feel hurt, Angel doubled down. She didn't say, "I hear you." She didn't say, "I'm experimenting, but I value you." No. She told her audience to shut the fuck up. That wasn't a misstep. That was a grenade. And that's when fans stopped seeing her as their champion. The very people who once defended her against unfair criticism now found themselves wondering who she had become. Because this wasn't the LSU version of Angel Reese who played with a chip on her shoulder and wore her passion like armor. This was someone else, someone trying to impress a crowd that never watched her play. That's the disconnect. And in today's media landscape, once your audience feels like you've forgotten who you are and who they are, it's over. No production budget, no high-profile guest, no shout-out from Shaq can fix that. Because the one thing you can't manufacture is trust. And once that's gone, it's nearly impossible to get back. The truth is, once you lose the trust of your core audience, especially in sports, it's not just about bad optics, it's about identity. And for Angel Reese, that identity was built on something rare: authenticity, passion, and a fearless commitment to being herself, even when the world didn't like it. She became a household name because people saw themselves in her. The girl from Baltimore who talked her talk, played with grit, and never backed down. The player who stared down opponents, flexed in big moments, and made no apologies. That was the reason people fell in love with her game. She wasn't manufactured. She wasn't media trained to be palatable. She was raw. She was real. And most importantly, she was herself. But here's the danger with fame. If you're not grounded, it will morph you into a version of yourself that's unrecognizable. And the second Reese shifted from the unapologetic hooper to the social media celebrity trying to impress everyone except hoopers, the connection started to fracture. This isn't just about one podcast episode. It's about a pattern. When you start choosing virality over value, when you prioritize follower count over fan loyalty, you start building an empire on sand. It might look impressive for a while. You might get sponsorships, interviews, magazine covers. But when the lights dim and your stats aren't front-page news anymore, the only thing that keeps you relevant is the respect you've earned from your real community. The people who loved you before you were trending. And Angel Reese is flirting with losing that respect. Because while the casual fan might enjoy a TikTok moment or an influencer cameo, the basketball community, the culture that she once represented so powerfully, sees the shift. They see the pivot, and they don't like what they're seeing. Not because they want her to stay small, but because they want her to stay real. You can't abandon the culture and expect the culture to ride for you when times get tough. Look at the greats, not just in women's basketball, but across the board. From Diana Taurasi to Candace Parker, from Sue Bird to even current stars like Aja Wilson and Caitlin Clark, they all built platforms by doubling down on their game, their story, and their connection to the sport. The media followed them. They didn't chase it. Because they understood, if you stay true to the work, the world will catch up. But Angel Reese is trying to skip steps. She's chasing celebrity status without realizing that basketball was the foundation of everything. And when you forget that, you don't just lose fans, you lose purpose. And the scariest part? There's still time to pivot back. But the longer she leans into the influencer echo chamber, the further she drifts from the arena that made her a star in the first place. Because at the end of the day, when the social media buzz fades and the brand deals slow down, the only question that matters is, can you still hoop? And more importantly, will the culture still care? Right now, that answer is starting to look like a no. Let's start with the WNBA transition, because this is where things get real. The WNBA is not a space where flash is enough. You can't just show up with millions of followers, a cool nickname, and a viral moment and expect to be handed a role. This is a league full of grown women who've been grinding for years, many of them making overseas sacrifices, playing 12-month seasons, putting their bodies on the line for a paycheck that barely covers their value. So when a rookie like Angel Reese walks in, not necessarily known for elite skill but for media hype, veterans are watching closely. Coaches are watching even closer. And here's the problem. If you don't show you're serious about the work, you immediately get boxed in as a distraction, not a contributor. Reese is walking into a locker room where everything is earned. And when you're known more for podcasts, brand partnerships, and public beefs than actual basketball improvement, that becomes your scouting report. Not just from analysts or fans, from your teammates. You can't fake your way through a WNBA season. There's no PR campaign that hides poor finishing at the rim or blown defensive rotations. And in a league where every roster spot is precious, where players get cut even with potential, coaches will always side with consistency and chemistry over chaos and clout. Now let's talk team chemistry. The moment Reese starts prioritizing image over impact, it sends shockwaves through the locker room, especially if she's not holding her own in practice or games. Teammates might not say it publicly, but behind closed doors, resentment builds. That, why is she getting all the attention? Energy turns toxic if it's not backed up with results. You can't be the loudest voice in the room if you're not also the one sprinting hardest in drills, diving for loose balls, or locking in during film sessions. The second your brand becomes bigger than your buy-in, trust erodes. And that can fracture a young locker room fast, especially one trying to rebuild or establish a new identity. On-court chemistry requires off-court humility, and Angel Reese is flirting with the exact opposite. When your entire off-season content is about appearances, outfits, and clout moments, while your rivals are doing skill-specific training with vets and mastering their weaknesses, you create a separation, not just in performance, but in mentality. Lastly, and this is crucial, brand deals are not bulletproof. Right now, Reese is riding a wave of popularity from her college legacy and social presence. But brands are fickle. If you become polarizing without performance, sponsorships dry up quick. Companies want ROI. And if you're no longer seen as beloved underdog but as overhyped underperformer, that bag can close up fast. Think about it. Nobody wants their logo attached to a player who's seen as a distraction. Especially in the WNBA, where narratives matter and media attention is finally starting to scale up in a meaningful way. If Reese becomes the story for all the wrong reasons, those same media opportunities can just as easily turn into PR headaches. And if her WNBA career starts slow, or worse, if she becomes a role player who struggles with efficiency, brands won't keep investing just because she once had a great run at LSU. They'll pivot to the next rising star who does both performance and presence. Angel Reese is walking a razor-thin line between becoming a generational icon or a cautionary tale. Her college legacy is secure, but the WNBA is a different world. This league doesn't care about past headlines, social media numbers, or viral sound bites. It cares about impact, skill, growth, and above all, consistency. Right now, the narrative around Reese is shifting. She's no longer the cultural darling who clapped back at the system. She's becoming a symbol of misaligned priorities, someone who had the world's attention but chose the spotlight over the grind. And in the WNBA, that choice comes with consequences. There's still time for her to flip the script, but it's going to take more than Instagram posts and runway fits. It's going to take sacrifice, focus, real development. Because in this league, hype fades fast, but habits, they stick. And if Angel Reese doesn't start building the right ones soon, she might just find herself remembered not as the player who changed the game, but the one who got left behind by it.